Today we are going to look at how to add eyeballs and some eye controls onto our LegMan character. So you have two options of the rig that you can load up. You can just load up the LegMan base rig, which is what I have here, or you can load up the LegMan character with arms already on there. Either one will work. It doesn't matter either way because the arms won't make a difference on what we're doing. So load up whatever rig you are most comfortable with, and we can get started. So we've created our LegMan rig at this point, and we've created the body and the actual legs and the feet. And then in a separate rig, we created the arms. So the last thing that LegMan needs to make him a completed character is his eyes. So we want to set them up. So what we're going to do is we're going to create both eyeballs, and then we're going to create some eyelids. And then we'll create some simple controls so that he's able to blink and kind of look around and that sort of thing. All right. So we just need to start by creating our actual geometry. So I am going to just hide LegMan right now. So I'm going to hide the geometry layer and the controls layer just so I have that clean slate. I'm going to turn my grid on too, just so I have like a floor to work off of. All right, so then I'm going to go to create polygon primitives and sphere. And this is going to be our eyeball. So I want to rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis. And the reason that I want to do that is because I want the top of it here, kind of where it comes to this point, to be facing the same direction as LegMan. So if I were to turn LegMan on, and obviously the eyeball is much bigger than him at this point, but you can see that he is facing forward over here. So we want this point to face that same direction. Let me just turn him back off. All right, so we want to kind of bring some of the geometry inside of the eyeball. We kind of almost want to open it up in a way. So I want to select this second row right here. So I'm just going to select one of them and just kind of double click my way around here so that I can select all of those geometry. Oops, there we go. So if you hold down shift, you can select all the geometry that way. Make sure you don't have anything else selected. And then what you can do from here is if you click shift on your keyboard and then click the period or the comma sign, you can go up or down. So you can see, you can kind of add on to what we are selected or take off kind of row by row, which is just a quick way to add to your selection. So I want to boost it up so that we have the first 3 rows selected on our geometry here. And then I'm going to click R because I want to go into scale mode. And I'm going to take this green and I'm just going to pull the green all the way in. So it's kind of like this, and it's kind of flat in the front. All right. And then once we have that, we are going to click W, and I'm going to push that geometry inside of the eye. Okay. So if I click 4, I can go into my wireframe mode. And now you can see that this geometry is kind of inside of the eyeball. The only thing that I do want to adjust on it a little bit is if I double click this row right here and I pull this forward a little bit, it'll kind of round it out and just give it a little bit more of that edge. So if you go into edge mode and you double click on any of the edges, it'll select that entire kind of group, and then just pull this one back out a little bit just so it's a little more rounded on the eye. Okay, so I want to go back then and reselect all 3 of these faces. So if you just go back into face mode, they may already be selected. If not, just select all 3 groups again, and we are going to work on this a little bit more. All right, so we've already pulled it in, which is good. And now we want to extrude these back a little bit. So if I hold shift down and right click somewhere on one of those faces that we've selected, I can go down to extrude face. I'm just going to select that. And then you'll see in your extrude face, you have kind of your circle right here, this blue circle that's around your controls. And then up on the top right, you'll see this little, it's like a circle with the line coming out of it. I'm going to select that. And what it's going to do is it's going to center our pivot point. I'm going to kind of put it in the middle of our geometry. All right, so I just want to push this back now a little bit. just like that. And then I also want to open it up. So if I click on this scale up on top, that green box, it'll put me in scale mode. And then I'm just going to kind of boost this thing up a little bit, just like that. Okay, so that's good there. And I'm going to pull it back a little bit more so it's really back inside of our eyeball. And that looks pretty good. So that's really all that we're looking for there. Make sure it's back inside, and then you can just go back into your object mode and get out of there. But we really just wanted the geometry to be pushed back inside, and we wanted that kind of rounded front with the wide open circle in there. And that's going to work as an eyeball for us. So then I just want to select it, and I haven't renamed it yet. So I'm going to rename it LT Eyeball. And you can just save that. Okay. So that looks good. We have that geometry created. Just a couple more things we want to do on it. And then we can start to create the eyelids that will go around it. So I'm going to go up to Modify, and I'm going to freeze transformations. And then I'm going to go to Edit, and Delete by Type, and History. Then down in my display layers over on the bottom right, I'm going to select the one on the far right that we've used before. It's just that create later with assigned objects that we've already selected. You'll see layer 1 is now there. So I just want to create that layer 1, and then I'm just going to rename this to be like an eye layer type thing. So I'm going to call mine eyes, LYR, and save. All right, so we've got the eye, or the left eyeball created. I'm going to hide it for right now because I want to figure out a few other things here. So I'm going to hide that. And I'm going to go into Create and Polygon Primitives and Sphere. And we want to load up just another sphere just like we did last time. From here, I'm going to click Spacebar. I'm going to go into my side view. And what I want to do is select in face mode. So right click, go down to face. I'm going to select the entire bottom half of the sphere. So if you just draw a box over that bottom half, it'll select everything there. And just delete it. So just click your delete key, and it will kind of just knock those out. Okay. So that looks good. So now I want to drag a box over the top and go back into my perspective view. And then I'm going to hold down Shift and right click and go into Extrude Face. Okay. So at this point, we want to pretty much just add another layer on top of this sphere so that there's 2 layers of faces. So it's not just this one kind of hollow shell. So an easy way to do it is once you get into this extrude face, so just grab this blue handle over here and actually just pull out a little bit. And if I look underneath now, you'll see that I've created this second layer of geometry. I can make it bigger or smaller. I'm just going to go right around here. So that it's about this width going on the outside. And then that will actually work perfectly for us. So once we have that, you can go back into your object mode and just click off of it. And this is going to act is that top eyelid for us. So I'm back in my object mode now. I'm just going to select this and I'm going to duplicate it. So Control D or Command D. And then I want to rotate it 180 degrees in the rotate x-axis. And that is going to be our bottom eyelid. And it will just drop it right on the bottom so it looks like we have a completed sphere, but it's actually in 2 separate pieces at this point. And then I want to rename them. So I'm going to select the top one and I will rename it LT Top Lid. And the bottom one will be LT Bottom Lid. Then you can just select both of them, go into Modify, and freeze our transformations. And then go to Edit, and Delete by Type, and History. So at this point we have both eyelids created, and we've also got that eyeball which we put in this eyes layer and hid the visibility on for right now. So that's perfect. So now I'm going to open up my outliner. So I'm going to go into Windows and down to Outliner. And in my outliner, you'll see these 3 new geometry that we just created. The eyeball, the top lid, and the bottom lid. And we just want to create a group for them. So I'm going to select the eyeball, and I'm going to group it. So I'm going to click Control G or Command G, and I'm going to rename this LTIGRP for left eye group. All right. And then I'm going to open it up, and I'm just going to drag the bottom lid, or the top lid and the bottom lid, onto the eyeball here. So if you middle mouse click in your outliner and you select them, you should be able to just drag them right on top of the eyeball. And we want it to end up looking just like mine is right here. So you can see we have the eye group, and right underneath the eye group is the eyeball. And then kind of stepping down into the LT top lid and LT bottom lid, those should be on the same level. So make sure that they're on the same level. And then I can turn my visibility back on my display layer, because it should have hid your top lid and bottom lid at that point. All right, so that's looking pretty good, and we should be good to go with our left eye. So now I want to place my eyeball onto my LegMan character. So I need to turn my geometry back on. So in my display layer over on the bottom right, my geo layer has my LegMan geometry. And you'll see that it's obviously, my eyeball is way too big at this point. So with my left eye group selected, I can click R and I can scale this down. And if you select the eye group in your outliner, it will make sure that all the pieces move together. So at this point, you just want to place your eyeball wherever you guys want it on LegMan and kind of get the scale down and that sort of thing. So I'm going to go around here, kind of over in this corner. I'm going to lift it up a little bit. And that looks pretty good. So I think I might push mine back into him a little bit more. That looks good. Okay. So that's about where I'm going to line mine up. It doesn't matter where you guys want to line yours up, but just, you know, figure out somewhere on this one side to put it and get the scale however you want it as well. So then I can select that LTI group, and I want to duplicate it. So I'm just going to click Command D, and you'll see that it's renamed it LTI group 1. I want to just change the translate to a negative value. So you can just put that negative side there. And it's going to pop that over to the right side of our LegMan character. Then I'm going to rename it RT eye group. And that looks good. Okay. Now I want to select both of those groups. So we have the left in our outliner, and I have my right. Select both of them. Modify and freeze transformations, and edit, delete by type, and history. And that should have done it to both sides. Okay. So then I want to just select both of those groups. So I'm going to minimize them here in my outliner, select my left eye group and my right eye group, and I am going to group them. And I'm going to call this eyes group. So that's kind of just our general group. It should kind of bomb out into our right eye group and then our left eye group, which would then have those corresponding geometry inside of it. So then if I select my eyes group, my kind of completed eyes group, I can go up to modify and center pivot, and it will just drop our pivot point in the center here. So geometry-wise, we are completely modeled at this point. The eyes are pretty simple for what we're going to do for LegMan. So the only other thing that we need to set up is our actual controller, so our kind of manipulator, so that our eyes can move around and look side to side and that sort of thing. So I want to start to create that. So I'm going to go to Create and NURBS Primitives and Circle. The same thing that we've done for all the other assignments. I'm going to go into my front view. So I'm going to click spacebar and get into my front view. I want to rotate my X value 90 degrees because I want that circle to face kind of forward in front of the LegMan. And then I'm going to scale it way down and place it over my left eye. And you want it to be just a little bit bigger than that left eye. So here I also want to snap it to the middle of the eye. So I want the actual pivot point to be right here. So by just clicking V, I can drag this forward, and you're going to see it snaps all around. That's because there's tons of geometry it's snapping. So it's actually an easier idea to go into your front view or your side view, kind of zoom in on it, hold down V, and then drag it right to the middle, and then make sure it's dragged right to the middle in your side view as well. You'll have to set both of those values. So it should be right there and right there. And then if you go into your perspective view now, you are all set. And that NURB circle kind of just wraps right around the eyeball. All right. So that looks good. And that's kind of what we want that to look like. I just want to rename it LT Eye Control. And we want to then put it on the other side as well. So if I duplicate it, so just Control D or Command D, and change my translate value to a negative, it will pop it over on the other side. I can rename that RT Eye Control for our right side. Okay. And then I actually want to duplicate it one more time. So I'm going to duplicate this one now. And I'm going to go to my translate X value, and I'm going to put it at 0. And what that will do is drop that third controller right directly in the center of the other two, which is right where we want it. So then if I go into my front view, we want this new controller to wrap around everything. So we want it to be big enough to wrap around both eye controls. So I'm going to kind of stretch it out here in my scale mode, just like this, and stretch this part out. And then I'm going to dip mine down a little bit. So with it selected, if I right click and go into Control Vertex, I'm going to take these two center points and just scale them in a little bit so that there's kind of this arch going in here. And that's really just more how I like it to look, but you guys can have it however you'd like. Once you have that set, you can go back into object mode, and then you should be all set with it there. So if we select it now, I just want to rename it to be our master. So master eye control, and save that. And then I want to just kind of select all of these, and I want to pull them out in front of our eyeball. So if I select the left eye control, and then I shift select the right eye control, and then I shift select the master control, I can just click P, and it'll do a quick parent over in our outliner for those. So in our outliner, it should look like this master control, which then steps down into the LTI control and the RTI control, and they should be on the same level. Now, if I select the master control and I click W, I can pull this out in front of LegMan a little bit, and you can set this to where you'd like it. I'm going to put mine right about there. And what these will end up doing is controlling each eye. So you want it a little bit out in front of him, just so that it's not right on top and it's easy to control, because we're going to end up aiming the eyeballs right at each of those controllers. So now that I have this placed where I want it, I'm going to drag a box over them, select all three, go to Modify, Freeze Transformations, Edit, Delete by Type, and History. Okay. So that looks good. In our outliner, we just want to clean that up a little bit more. So we've already set it out in front of LegMan. So in the outliner, select the master eye control, which is kind of the leader of the other two, and group it. So Command G. And I want to rename this eye controls. So from here, you can see the center pivot isn't exactly where we want it. So if I go to Modify, Center Pivot, it'll put that center pivot right in the middle of our eye control, which is exactly where we want it. And now we should really be all set as far as our controls go. So our controls are created, our geometry is created. All that we need to do is kind of sync everything up, and then the eyeballs should work perfectly for us. So I need to start by putting in a set-driven key. We need that set-driven key so that it can kind of control our blink, and that's what it's mostly going to do. So if I select my master eye control, I can go to Modify and Add Attribute. And this is the same thing we've done on some of the other rigs, but we just want to add some of these attributes in so that we're able to do the blink and that sort of thing pretty easily. So up in long name, I'm going to create a bunch of these. So the first one is going to be LTI. Minimum value is going to be -10, and maximum value will be 10. Default is 0, and you can leave the rest how it is. And just click Add. And you want to make sure you are on that master eye control when you're doing this. The next one is going to be LT top open. Minimum value is -10, and maximum is 10. Next one is LT top tilt, -10 and 10. And then we're going to do the LT bottom open, -10 and 10. And the LT bottom tilt, -10 and 10. And that's going to be everything for our left side. So now we just got to do pretty much duplicate it for our right side. So I'm going to create the RTI, -10 and 10. And then we want RT top open, -10 and 10. RT top tilt, -10 and 10. RT bottom open, -10, 10. And our last one will be the RT bottom tilt, -10 and 10. And this time you can click OK, and it will close that out. So over in our channel box here, you should have all of those new attributes loaded. And right now they won't do anything, but they should be there so that we can set them up in the set-driven key options. So the LTI attribute we created and the RTI attribute actually aren't going to have any controls on them. They're just there as kind of a header so that we can work the stuff that's underneath them. So if I select both, so I select the LTI, hold down Control and select the RTI, you can right-click somewhere and just click Make Selected Non-Keyable, which is towards the bottom. And then I'm also going to right-click and just lock them, because we don't need to adjust any animation on those, so it's easier to just completely wipe them out. Okay, so now we need to set up that set-driven key so that all of these options actually work for us. And I just loaded my outliner up on top on accident, so give me a second while I kind of mess with that. There we go. Okay. So I want to go up in the top left. I want to change over to animation. And then I want to go to key, set-driven key, and set. And we've done a bunch of set-driven keys at this point throughout some other tutorials. So this one's actually not too bad. It's pretty simple. So for our driver, we want to load the master eye control. So I can select it and load driver. And then we just need to create or select each eyelid for the geometry. So the first one we're going to work with is the LT top lid, because our first attribute is LT top open. And I can load that as the driven. So Right now, if I click my master eye control, all of my values are at 0. Please make sure that all of yours are at 0, or else you will have issues as far as all the ones that we created. The only thing that shouldn't be at 0 at this point is the scales. They should be set at 1. So on the top, in my driver, I'm going to select LT top open. And then in my LT, kind of that top lid group that we've created here, we want to select the rotate X, because rotate X for this is going to kind of work in the right direction. It's going to go up and down because we want him to be able to blink. So rotate X, and I'm just going to click key to set that first key. Now if I select my master eye control, I can change my LT top open to 10. Go back and select the geometry. And I want to set the rotate X. Sorry about that. There we go. To -90. Because we want that eyelid to be completely open at that point. Then I can just click key and go back to my master eye control and set it to -10. And then go back to my geometry and set that at 90 and go the opposite way and key. Then I can go back and just zero out the LT top open, and that one should be good. So now we can move down to the LT top tilt attribute. In this time, we're going to use, we're going to use the rotate Z because we want our eyelid to be able to tilt like this. So I'm going to swap down to rotate Z in my driven. Make sure that my master eye control is on LT top tilt and everything's zeroed out, and click key. Then for the LT top tilt, I'm going to set it to 10. Go back to the geometry. And at this point, I want to load this to 90. So it's going to rotate in. Any positive value is always going to go in or in for us. Any negative value would go out. So I want to key that. Then I want to change my value to -10. And go back and set my rotate Z to -90 this time. And key that. Go back, I can zero that out. And we are done with the top lid. So now we just need to pretty much repeat that same process for the other 3 eyelids that we have. So I'm going to select the LT bottom lid and load that as the driven now. And from here, we want to scroll down one more on our master eye control to LT bottom open. And it was the rotate X field that we decided to use last time. So we want to use that same thing. So LT bottom open, rotate X on that LT bottom lid, and key. Then I want to go and set that value to 10 for the LT bottom open. Go back to the geometry, and it should be at 90 because we want it to open at this point. So I can just key. Go back to the master eye control and set it at -10. And then my rotate X value here should be -90 and key. And then just moving right along, I'm going to go back and zero that out. Go down to my LT bottom tilt. And if you remember last time, that was the rotate Z. So I want to go to LT bottom tilt on my driver. Make sure I'm zeroed out. In the driven, I'm going to go to rotate Z and click key to set that first frame. Then I'm going to change that to 10. And we want it to go in, if you remember. So I'm going to have it go to -90 here. And key. And then I can swap that. So on my bottom tilt, I can go to -10. And my rotate Z here should be 90. Go that opposite way. So then I can go back and zero that out. And we can move on to the right side. So same exact process on the right side. So in my driver, I can scroll down to RT top open. I want to select that right that right lid over on my LegMan character. It looks like I actually forgot to rename those. So I just selected what should be the RT top lid. I guess I never reset the name for those, so I want to just make sure that I do that. So spare with me for 1 second here. Okay. Yep. So in my right eye group that we created, we have the LT eyeball, the LT top lid, and the LT bottom lid. I just never went back and adjusted those. So I'm going to go here and just adjust them. So I'm going to select the LT eyeball, and I want to make that the RT eyeball. The LT top lid should be the RT top lid, and the LT bottom lid should be the RT bottom lid. Sorry about that. So now that works better, and you can see the LT is under the left and the RT is under the right. Close that outliner back out. Okay, so now we select the RT top lid and we load that as the driven, and we're just going to repeat the same process. So it's our rotate X value, RT top open, and I'm going to key. Change the RT top open to 10. We want the lid at this point to open up. So on my RT top lid, it should come a -90 value to open itself up, and key. Go back to the eye control and change it to -10. This time it should be 90, and key. Then I'm going to go on to the top tilt here. So top tilt, and it should be the rotate Z. Make sure it's at 0 and key. Change the RT top tilt to 10. And then the rotate Z here should go -90. We want it to go in. Key. And then the RT top tilt at -10. And it should be at 90. Key. Set it back to 0, and now we want to just do the bottom. So the RT bottom open. For my driver, I want to select the RT bottom lid and load that as the driver. First one is the rotate X. So I'm going to key. Change my RT bottom open to 10. My RT bottom lid to a value of 90. And key. Go back to the master eye control, put it at -10. The RT bottom lid here should be -90, which is that opposite, and key. And our last attribute that we need to work on is the RT bottom tilt. It should be the rotate Z. So I'm going to select both of those and key. Change the RT bottom tilt to 10. We want it to go in, so it's going to be a value of 90. And key. And then I want to set it at -10. And the rotate Z value should be -90. And key. So then at this point, you can close out of the set driven key, which is nice. And now if I select my master eye control, it should have all of those loaded. So I'm going to put this back at 0, and you just want to test a couple of them to make sure that they work. So if I select my LT top open, it should open up my eyeball. My tilt should go side to side. My bottom should then open up, and my bottom should tilt. And then on the right side, should do the same thing. Top opens, top tilts, bottom opens, and bottom tilt. So to animate a blink, you would just kind of open things up like this, and just kind of work it that way, which is easy to do. So that looks good. I want to start setting LegMan up a little bit now. So I'm going to set my LT top open to 5, my LT bottom open to 5, my RT top open to 5, and my RT bottom open to 5. And the reason I'm doing that is because LegMan needs to have his eyes open for right now. So I'm just going to let him open up his eyes. So he looks good there. So we've got a couple of other things to do. and then we are pretty much done with our LegMan character. So the first thing that I want to do, I'm going to load up my outliner just to have it up next to me here, because we're going to select a couple of things. So some people like to select right in the outliner. So I want to select that left eye control, and then I want to shift select the left eyeball geometry, and I need to go back into modeling. I was in animation, so I'm going to go back to, actually no I don't, it's still here. So I'm going to go up over to the right to constrain, and we want to do an aim constraint this time. Open up that option box, make sure that maintain offset is on, and click apply. Because what that's going to do is going to let this control kind of direct where the eyeball is looking. I'll show you what that means in just a second. So now I want to do it on the right side as well. So select that right eye control, shift select the right eyeball geometry, constrain, and aim. Okay. So that looks good. Now we want to select our body move. So I want to turn on my controls layer here. So over in the display layers, my controls for LegMan. I'm going to select my body move. And then I'm going to select my eyes group. So I'm going to hold down Control or Command and select that eyes group. And I want to go to Constrain and Parent. Okay. Then I want to select my eye controls group in my outliner. And I want to shift select my master move, which is the large one on the bottom. Shift select that and just press P to parent. All right, and then I want to select my eyes control group one more time. So just a second here, I just gotta go find it because I just dropped it into my controls. So it's gonna be in LegMan in your outliner in your controls, and it should be in there now. So under master move, the eye controls is in there. So I want to go into there, select the eye controls group, and this time I want to shift select the body control and press P to parent. Okay, so at this point, LegMan should move around pretty well. In the eyes, you can see are following him around. And if I select the master move, they follow him too. So that is what we are looking for, and that's good news. If he rotates, the eyes should rotate with him, and the control should rotate too. So that seems to be working. And now we just want to test and make sure that the actual controls are working for the eyeballs. So if I select the master eye control and I drag it around, you'll see that the eyeballs are going to follow where the controls are. So the master eye control will control both eyeballs, and if you want to select one eyeball, you can just select that individual control. So if I just want the left eye control to look over, I can select the left eye control and move that around. And then I can do the same on the right side. And I can set these outside of the actual master control if I want to. And then when I move the master control, it should leave them where they are and kind of keep them offset like that. So that looks good. All the controls seem to be working. I want to select those controls, so I'm going to select all three of them. I'm going to go into my controls display layer, and I want to add those objects into there. And then I want to just go into my eyes layer, which I had my eyes geometry, and I want to set that to reference as well, so that I can't select the geometry there. From there, you can save up your work and set this as a new rig, because now you've got eyeballs on your LegMan character, and those eyeballs, hopefully for you, will be working out just fine. And you can start animating and messing around with some easy to use eyeballs. So hopefully you guys took something out of the LegMan character. We did a lot with him. We modeled him. We rigged him just in general, and then we rigged some arms for him and some eyeballs. So we kind of took it step by step, created a full character rig for you guys that's easy to use and simple, and should be fun for your first character animations.